Energy resources. This is a brief look at a number of different energy resources, most of which are covered in more detail in their own specific videos. Energy resources can be split into two categories: non-renewable, that cannot be replaced, and renewable, that can be replaced. Note they cannot be reused, but once we've used them, we can make more. Non-renewable includes coal, oil, gas, and, although we have plenty of it, nuclear. Renewable includes wind power, geothermal, wave, tidal, solar, hydroelectric power, or HEP, and fitting somewhere between these would be pumped storage, as it requires one of the other energy resources to make it work. More of this later. With the exception of nuclear, geothermal and tidal, these energy resources can be traced back originally to the Sun. Coal. Well, coal was formed from decayed plants that gained their energy from the Sun through photosynthesis. This is plants that decayed millions of years ago. Oil and gas. They were formed from decayed plankton and bacteria from the oceans. They will have gained their energy from the plant life they ate, and these plants got their energy from the Sun through photosynthesis. The wind. Well, the wind is caused mainly by convection currents due to variations in temperature on the Earth. The land heats and cools faster than water. This is partly due to the high thermal capacity of water, and also, as water is a fluid, the heat penetrates deeper than on the land. You will have experienced being on the beach, where the top surface of sand is almost too hot to stand on, but just a few centimeters down, the sand is cool. The water will heat to a much greater depth than this. So during the day, the land will be at a higher temperature than the sea. At night, the sea will be at a higher temperature than the land. Here we have a diagram including the land and the sea, and if we consider daytime to start with, and look at a patch of air above the land, it will gain energy from the land and so heat up, expanding. This makes it less dense, and so it will rise up to be replaced with cooler air coming in from above the sea. This leads to an onshore breeze. At night, the sea will be warmer than the land, so a patch of air above the sea will warm, expand, and rise, being replaced by cooler air from above the cooler land. This leads to an offshore breeze. So we get an onshore breeze during the day and an offshore breeze at night. Other factors come into play, for example the differential heating of the Earth. If we consider 3 equal bands of sunlight reaching the Earth at different points on its surface. Here, at the equator, the sunlight is concentrated on a small patch of the Earth's surface. Here, some way away from the equator, the sunlight is spread over a larger area. It's more thinly spread. And here, towards a pole, the sunlight is spread over a much larger area, meaning it is much more thinly spread. This differential heating leads in general to air rising above the equator, coming in to replace it from the poles. So the sun is more concentrated at the equator. Other factors like the spin of the Earth also have a major effect on the strength and direction of the wind. Now to look at geothermal. Nuclear reactions within the Earth keep it hot. If there weren't radioactive materials within the Earth, it would have cooled down and solidified millions of years ago. This energy can be used to heat water, which can then be used for heating of homes and businesses, or can be used to generate electricity. A geothermal power station will pump cold water down towards the hot rocks deep within the Earth. The water will then pass through cracks in the rocks and rise as steam, which can then be used to drive a turbine. Waves. Well, waves are caused by a combination of the tides and the wind blowing across the surface of the sea. The constant motion of the sea can be used to make floats move, so turning a generator. Tidal. As the tide comes in and out, it can be used to drive a turbine, as this animation will show. Here we have the situation at high tide. The tide has been prevented from coming in by this barrage. If we open the gates, the tide water will rush in, driving this turbine. Now we can seal the barrage again, and as low tide approaches, we can open the barrage, allowing the water to flow out. The tides are caused mainly by the gravitational pull of the Moon, and with a lesser effect due to the gravitational pull of the Sun, as I'll show in a moment. The Moon has a greater effect, even due to its much smaller mass than the Sun, because it is so much closer to us. When the Sun, Earth and Moon are aligned like this, or like this, both the Sun and the Moon act together to give extra high tides, here and here, and extra low tides, here and here. This is known as a spring tide. These can happen at any time of the year. When the Sun, Moon and Earth are aligned like this, the Moon will be pulling the water towards it, which also causes a build-up here, but the Sun will be having a lesser effect, pulling the water here and here. This leads to lower high tides and higher low tides. Overall, the rise and fall of water is less, and these are known as neap tides. Solar power. We can use the sun's energy directly in two ways. It can be used to directly heat water, or to produce electricity using photovoltaic cells, like you may have on your calculator. Hydroelectric power. As water runs downhill towards the sea, we can harness its energy to drive a turbine. The sun evaporated the water in the first place, causing it to rain down again in the mountains, giving it its gravitational potential energy. Pumped storage systems. A pumped storage system involves an upper lake and a lower lake connected by a pipeline which goes through a generator cum motor and turbine pump assembly. At times of a sudden surge in demand for electricity, the upper lake will feed through this turbine to the lower lake, producing electricity. They can go from 0 to maximum production in a matter of seconds. This is useful, for example, at the end of a football match, when people up and down the country will be going through to their kitchen to put the kettle on for a cup of tea. At a time of low demand, electricity will be brought in from another power station to pump the water back up again, ready to be used again. Pumped storage systems actually require more energy to pump the water up than will be taken from the water as it falls down, but they are an excellent emergency source of power, and can be a way of turning cheap nighttime electricity into more valuable peak time electricity. This has just been a brief run through some of the main energy resources used in the UK, and most of these are covered in more detail in their own specific videos.